We'll talk here just briefly about Simplot. You heard my comments about Randall Raymond and his interest in coming to us. And it started out again, this project did more of a heifer project. He wanted to use Hereford bulls on his females to get a little bump in heterosis. Again, they have their own feedlot. They retain ownership. They have grow-safe systems there. We DNA everything. And here's one of the challenges. Somebody asked me what you can do. So when Simplot approached us about using Hereford bulls on their heifers, and remember one of the things that we talked about was birth weight, was an issue that we had to get over and make genetic improvement in our breed and calving ease. And so when you start talking about getting into a heifer program, it makes you a little queasy. But this is what we knew. We knew at the American Hereford Association we had implemented whole herd reporting. We'd found the kind of genetics that we needed to make progress. The birth weight bulls were out there. And we signed a contract with Simplot Ranch over 10 years ago, or around 10 years ago, that said, if you use Hereford genetics and you see increased dystocia, calving problems, death loss, whatever it is, the American Hereford Association is committed to writing you a check to make up the difference in those values. I'm happy to say we haven't wrote the first check. But that's a commitment that we made at the Hereford Association that said we had belief in the cattle and we had belief in the project. So again, that I guess we didn't go through that, but what you will see in this particular project, I forgot to mention to you again, that was about 10 years ago. I'm happy to report, you think about 30,000 cows and what they do. The only thing they AI at Simplot Ranch is their heifers. They do have a set of research cows, and over the last 4 or 5 years, when their heifers come down the aisle to get bred, if they're a solid black or a solid red, they get a Hereford bull. If they're a black baldy or red baldy, they get a black bull. They calve those heifers out near the ranch. I don't even know how many numbers it is, but it's huge. And then when these cows get rebred the second time as a 2-year-old, they go up into these high desert conditions, and that's where they're turned out. And when those cows go to the high desert pastures, they're run with a Hereford, an Angus, and a Charolais bull. Collectively, they turn out bulls all together. And crossbreeding is really not very hard for Randall, because when they come back in at weaning time, all of the smut-colored calves or Charolais sired calves go directly to the feed yard, heifers and steers. And again, they make their decision in terms of replacement heifers off of those black baldies and blacks, and the process continues to start. So theoretically, what they're wanting is their entire cow herd to be 50-50 Hereford Angus, but in all reality, it's probably 3/8, 5/8, right? Because some of the baldies are probably more. Some of the blacks, honestly, probably have a touch of Hereford in them. They said that yesterday in that graph that they showed to you. But the thing is, these folks bought more Hereford bulls last 2 years than they did Charolais and Angus bulls. And again, they see the value of it. And when Randall came to us about this project to begin with, we asked him why he kind of had in mind Hereford. Well, there's some real key components. Their again, disposition, their toughness, their ability to maintain body condition. And then on top of that, he wanted to decrease mature cow size. And we were one of the few breeds in the United States that had a trait for mature cow size. And he wanted to make efficiency better, and we had as many individual feed intake data points as anybody else in the industry. So he could make the kind of decisions. We had the information that he needed. And then the final point with the Simplot, and I'll leave you with this, the other reason that he chose Hereford is because they're easily distinguishable, right? So in his crossbreeding scheme, remember what I said when he turns cows out, he uses Charolais, Angus, and Hereford. The Charolais calves are easy to identify because they're all smut-colored. They go right to the feed yard, and the blacks and the baldies are part of his replacement scheme, and those are easily identifiable things. In our country, some of our competitive breeds have not looked at keeping their identity but in turn trying to make their cattle look like some of the others. So we were able to gain some ground also because of that identifiable black baldy, or that white face. So I'll touch on a little bit here about our National Reference Sire Program, and as I said, this is kind of similar to what Rob talked about with the research population, or the that you have, the population, the reference population, excuse me. But over the last 20 years, we have been very active in trying to find and test young sires. It started out in the herds in western Nebraska, Olson Ranch. As a matter of fact, some of you breeders in here may have been a part of that original linkage program, David, that we looked at a global evaluation with, and we used some Australian, New Zealand genetics in that herd, along with South American and Canada bulls, and we compared them equally, and that data was kind of the beginning of that particular project. But in 2018, this project has grown. We now get about 3,500 commercial cows bred across the U.S. We have these different herds located in different environments. In this program, a member can nominate a bull. Doesn't mean he's going to be selected, but he can nominate a bull, and if he makes it, he has to provide the owner of the commercial cows at least 60 straws of semen. We prefer to get 75 cows bred, just so that we know we've got a big enough group. Data is collected at all stages of production, and I'll back up here. If a member gets his young sire selected to be used in one of these programs, he owes the commercial cow herd $2,500 to help offset the cost of any kind of cost associated with data collection, along with synchronization cost and so on and so forth. We obviously, we collect data at all stages of production. That includes birth, weaning, yearling, and we collect individual feed intake. We collect DNA on these calves now. And these calves in this program are all mass harvested on one day, so within a contemporary group. So at Olson's, we get about 350 steers killed on one day. That's a nice sizable contemporary group. It's all real carcass data, and so that makes its way into our genetic evaluation, and that's really an excellent opportunity to capture more carcass data. We try to use one common sire among all the herds, and that sire needs to be a sire that's actually went through the program before, so that we can now connect him to the old reference and connect all the herds together. We try to have one common sire in all of them. And I'm very proud to announce that over the years we've had 2 of these herds recognized by the Beef Improvement Federation as the Commercial Producer of the Year for the work that they do. So what do? We make all these changes. We find these good cattle. We have put some effort into helping our members help their buyers market cattle. The Hereford Advantage program is one that we instituted, that if you have a set of feeder calves that are sired by a Hereford bull, or your bull battery is in the top 50% of the breed for our what we call our CHB index, which is our terminal sire index, then we'll help you find feed yards to at least bid on your calves, right? That's about customer service. We don't guarantee that anybody's going to buy them, but we will get guys out there to at least come and take a look and bid on those calves for you. The Maternal Advantage program is the other way. This is the one if you have a set of females that are sired by a bull that's in the top 50% of our breed for the maternal indexes, which are BMI and BII. BMI is actually an acronym for Baldy Maternal. BII is the Brahma Influence Index, which I know you folks have a lot of access to Bos Indicus cows here. And so we'll again help them market those females, and as we've shown, those black baldy, red baldy females are not very hard to market. And I will tell you, maybe even more valuable than those are the tiger stripes. In the Gulf Coast area, those females have sold incredibly high. And then I'm really, really proud of this next one, the Premium Red Baldy program, because collaboration was talked about a little bit yesterday. We have those challenges in the United States, not with the science community, the universities, but amongst breed associations. Remember, we're very personal. We love what we do. We love our breed. We love our association. But about a year and a half ago, Tom Brink at the Red Angus Association and I sat down together and had a cup of coffee and said, what can we do collectively together in an effort to help our breeders and the commercial industry? So we started this Premium Red Baldy program, and it's a joint effort between the two associations. And again, if there's Hereford bulls used as a topside cross on Red Angus, the bull battery has to be a certain level of BMI. I think it's in the top 25%, maybe it's top 50. Don't quote me there for sure. And the same goes with the Red Angus. If you use Red Angus bulls as a topside sire, they have to be in their herd builder index in the top 50%, and then we'll go and help you try to find a buyer for those females, or at least you can label those animals. And again, it's very, very important in terms of marketing. We got a lot of press out of that, working together with the Red Angus Association. The community was very impressed that we finally stepped forward, and when we did that, that's actually when we went and did the maternal advantage, because then we got calls from the Brangus Association, the Santa Gertrudis Association, as well as Brahma. So we're working collaboratively with as many breed associations as we can to identify good crossbred cattle that benefit the industry. So when I sent these slides to Andrew the other day, he really wasn't very forthcoming with me. Because I'd put all those pictures on there of everything but a Hereford, and I really didn't think about it at the time, because this is what we do in the U.S. This is how we promote Hereford to commercial cattlemen. And then beyond that, this is the focus that we have in our national advertising campaign at the Hereford Association. We've run 2 ads over the last few years, and one of them is called The Power of Black, Only Better, and the national picture is a black baldy. It's a face of a black baldy. And then the second ad that we ran here just recently was one called The Bald-Faced Truth About Hereford Genetics. Again, some of you talk about it, and some of it is perceived problems, but we have made some real changes and growth in the genetics of the Hereford breed. So we wanted to kind of swap out some of those perceived problems and the perception in the commercial industry. And again, our national ad campaign was a black baldy picture. So we have to be comfortable with that again. And what, Andrew said it was okay. I got here and maybe it wasn't okay, but it's what we did. It's what we're doing, and it's creating demand for our cattle and our Hereford membership. So he asked if I could share some of the overlying trends that we can see some real value here. So as you can see over the last 4 or 5 years, and I want to stop right here because I want to tell you, remember when we first started doing these projects was about 2004. We're in 2019. So the story here is that you absolutely will not see immediate change in what you're doing. You have to be committed to something. You've asked a lot of questions to some of the presenters. Well, what should we be doing? All right? And that's that true north. You have to decide what your place is in the industry, where you're going to focus your attention, understand very clearly that you can't be everything to everybody. And you got to see where Hereford fits in breed complementary and where it fits in Australia. And then stay committed to it. And if your membership doesn't go up 25% the first year you implement these things, it's okay. It's a long process. The cattle business doesn't turn over quite as quickly as poultry and pork. It takes a little longer to show the results in the term. You know, you had your project it took 3 years to get some information back on your original project. So what we did is back in 2004 or 5, did this, and I actually just took our membership trend line. Last year, fiscal year 2018, we had the largest number of membership that we've had in a long time. We were just shy of 8,000 members. And that grew from under 6, between around 5,500 to almost 8,000 members over this course of these 10 years. Our registration trend, I was talking to David again before we came in. We've seen a nice growth here in what we've done. And again, in fiscal year 2018, we actually topped over 81,000 registrations. That's the most we've had in the last 30 years. Our cow inventory, and I'll touch on this very briefly because there's been some discussion with your board here a couple of days ago on this and that. One of the really bold moves that the American Hereford Association made back in 2000, when things were kind of swirling down the old drain, was they implemented whole herd reporting, right? So I'll touch on that just a little bit because there's always been some questions. It's an inventory-based system in the United States where you pay $5 per cow, and the only two traits that are mandatory for whole herd reporting in the U.S. is a calving E score on the cow. In other words, we want to know whether she calved or not, and that's very apparent because we've developed a fertility trait because of it. And then the second thing is a weaning weight. That's the one weight that most of our members get, and that's the crop that's the biggest, right? Because a lot of calling decisions are made after weaning. So those are the two traits that are mandatory. However, if you submit yearling weights to us, and it's an incomplete calf crop, we do not use the data. It has to come in as a complete group of either a disposal code from weaning to yearling, or we have to have a weight associated with it, or we do not use it in the genetic evaluation. The other thing that we stay committed to in whole herd reporting is compliance. You have to do those two things to be a compliant TPR breeder. We actually give you 2 years to be compliant for a calf crop, and if you're not compliant after 2 years, we turn the EPDs off on your animals. It's kind of a bold statement, but that's what we do. So you have to stay compliant or you do not receive EPDs on your animals. Now you can get back in there and update your calf crop, get compliant, we'll flip them back on. But that's the one thing that, in my opinion, the board of directors at the Hereford Association did that got them committed to performance recording and doing the right things, and I think it was a game changer for us. There's only 2 breeds in the association that do, or in the United States that do that. That's Hereford and Red Angus. We're the only 2 that are mandatory whole herd reporting. So, our cow inventories, because we do track our performance program on cow inventory base, we actually reached over 121,000 cows last year, the first time again since the implementation of whole herd reporting. That's the largest number we had. And most importantly, maybe to your membership, and certainly most important to your board and to Andrew, what does this mean financially to the association? As you can see, there was some rocky years, but over time, we've seen an increase in our revenue, and last year we put over $600,000 back in reserve. And again, that's just because of the growth of the business, and so on and so forth. So as I wrap up here, I'll tell you, and I think it's pretty clear that you understand, and I believe most of you probably do anyway, heterosis does work. In the United States, we've proven that Hereford genetics have a place in the commercial cow herd. Our seed stock producers were very committed because of what they do in whole herd reporting and the fact that they were committed to making genetic progress in the breed. I'm very proud of that. One of the challenges that we have, or I called it an opportunity, but a challenge is to look at red-hided cattle in some of our feeder calf markets. It's not so much in the middle part of our country, but as we get into the coast, some of those calves are discounted just a little bit still behind their black counterparts. It's not black baldies, but the reds and the red baldies will get discounted just a little bit, so it's a bit of a challenge. I don't know, many of you in here know James Bennett is the founder of Knollcrest Farms in the United States, and when I first got my job at Hereford, he's a wonderful gentleman, a good friend of mine. We were out somewhere together. We were sitting at a table, and he leaned over to me and he said, "Jack, in your job as Director of Breed Improvement at the Hereford, you have to remember one thing, that our breed is never as good as the worst feeder calf that sells in the local sale barn." So you heard David talking about swapping these bell curves to the right. We had to be focused on that. Because nobody will remember those good ones that ran through that sale barn. They'll remember those scrubs. That's what it's all about. And so we had to make a challenge. We had to challenge ourselves. And finally, capitalize on Team Hereford. And that's why you're here. We talked about this earlier. It's really important. In our last strategic plan, one of the real core strategies were to position ourselves in places where we have value and importance. So myself, one other colleague sits on the Beef Improvement Federation board. I've been on the advisory committee for the Beef Cattle Consortium Group a long time ago. I sit on an advisory group for the Germplasm Project, or Germplasm Preservation Project. I've served on the Ultrasound Guidelines Council. We now have a staff member that's chairman of that particular committee. But my point is, you have to be involved. Whether it's your staff or you as members, you have to have a place at the table to talk about the things and defend what you're doing at the American Hereford, or at your Australian Hereford Association. So we call that Team Hereford and spreading the message. And here's the best slide. This is the one that I finish all of my presentations with, because I think it's absolutely the most important and the one that's visual. That is an awesome picture. That's what we were trying to do over the course of the last 15 years, is get a Hereford bull on that black cow. But as I told the young guns the other day, that's all great and dandy as long as that baldy calf does what that commercial producer wants done. Because if it doesn't perform to their expectations, they're not going to blame that black cow. They're going to blame that Hereford bull. And so you have to be committed to doing the right things, producing the right genetics, and be proud of what you do and be confident in what you do. Because again, if there's something that fails there, it's not the black cow's fault. Thank you very much.